My husband thinks I'm being cold, but I don't understand why. I have no obligation to help my sister-in-law, especially when she doesn't even try to help herself. But he scolds me instead of her. I'm a working woman in my 40s, living with my husband and our middle school-aged daughter. She's in her second year and has grown into an obedient and thoughtful child. Despite some problems in our family life, we try to maintain a peaceful home for her sake. We don't want to disrupt her environment because of our own issues. Even so, my husband is already a handful to deal with, and he makes it worse by taking on more problems, namely my sister-in-law. Every time she fights with her husband, she runs to our house and stays until her husband apologizes and picks her up. When they were newlyweds, their fights would end in a day, so it wasn't as bad. But now, 10 years into their marriage, my husband says things like, "Let's take care of her until the weekend." It's ridiculous. She's in her mid-30s but hasn't matured at all and keeps repeating the same behaviors from her younger days. Whenever she stays with us, it disrupts our lives, adds to our expenses, and throws everything out of balance. The only silver lining is that she's a bad example for our daughter, who says things like, "I don't want to grow up to be like her." But my sister-in-law freeloads shamelessly. She does absolutely nothing while she's her annual housework. No payment, nothing. She acts like a guest, asking things like, "What's for lunch?" as if it's normal for me to serve her, even when I'm rushing out to work. I've had enough. I tell her calmly but firmly, "You're not a child. Make your own food. If you use anything from the fridge, pay for it." It's frustrating to always feed my freeloading sister-in-law. She never does anything herself and, of course, doesn't take my suggestions kindly. Instead, she rolls her eyes and yells, "What's with the attitude? I'll tell my brother." Let me remind, yes, she's in her mid-30s, married, childless, and completely dependent on others. The person she depends on most is my husband, who isn't much help either. When she complains to him, he says things like, "Why don't you just buy her some pastries or something?" I calmly respond, "Why don't you buy them yourself with your allowance?" He grimaces and accuses me of being cold. It's ridiculous. My sister-in-law doesn't contribute to housework either. When her stay stretches longer, she dumps her dirty underwear in the laundry basket, assuming I'll wash it. She doesn't even bother asking. She just assumes I'll do it for her. But I think it's only fair not to. I tell her firmly, "Wash your own underwear. I'm not your mother, and this isn't your house. You're a grown woman, so take care of yourself." Instead of handling it, she tattles to my husband, who responds with pointless comments like, "It's not a big deal to wash it, right?" He seems desperate to impress her but completely misses the point. It's not about the time or effort, it's about the entitlement. I suggest, "Why don't you have her wash her own underwear in the bathroom?" She's not a child, but my husband dismisses me, calling me cold-hearted again. Dealing with him is exhausting enough, but bringing his problematic sister into our home only adds more strain. It feels like he's trying to ruin our family life instead of protecting it. I don't understand why I'm being called cold-hearted. I'm just stating the obvious. No adult woman should rely on someone else to wash her underwear. Even our daughter, who's still young, takes care of her own laundry because she doesn't want her clothes mixed with her dad's. When I pointed this out with a sharp glare, my husband went silent. My husband never scolds his sister, so her behavior just keeps getting worse. One Sunday, while my daughter was sitting on the sofa watching TV, my sister-in-law stormed in after another argument with her husband. She rudely said, "Move, you're in the way," and kicked my daughter's arm to shove her aside. She probably just wanted to lie on the sofa, but this was the last straw. Up until now, I'd ignored her antics, but using violence against my daughter was unforgivable. I stepped between them, protecting my daughter, and yelled, "What are you doing? It's bad enough that you barge into our house and act like it's yours, or hurting a child is beyond unacceptable. I'm not letting someone who harms my family stay here. Get out right now." All the frustration I'd been holding in towards her and my husband came pouring out. My sister-in-law was stunned at first, but then her anger started to show. Just as she was about to speak, my husband came in and tried to calm things down, saying, "Come on, Come on, she sulked and sat ready in a chair, but I wasn't letting this go. I made it clear, speaking firmly in front of both of them. I'm not joking. I'm tired of your sister ruining our lives. It's not good for our daughter to have someone like her around. Send her back to her house right now and don't let her come here again. My husband tried to calm me down, but I wasn't going to be appeased. The root of this problem was him pampering his sister, and it needed to stop. My foolish husband didn't take the situation seriously. Instead, he shrugged and said, "Don't exaggerate, just tell our daughter to be careful, and there won't be a problem." That was it. Had enough. I glared at him and said, "What are you even talking about? I've been wondering why are you so lenient with your sister? Is she blackmailing you or something?" He didn't like my tone and angrily pushed me away, snapping, "What kind of way is that to talk to your husband?" The force he used caught me off guard, and I stumbled back into a shelf. A heavy clock fell onto my shoulder, causing sharp pain. My daughter screamed and ran to help me, but my husband didn't care. Instead, he coldly said, "If this teaches you a lesson, you should reflect on it," and left the room. Meanwhile, my sister-in-law stood there smirking, clearly enjoying the chaos. I couldn't take it anymore. My husband wasn't just a problem because of his sister was a problem all on his own. He couldn't hold down a job, quitting whenever things got tough. His current job was a part-time position that paid less than an entry-level salary. He couldn't even pay off his college loans, so I've been covering them. I made him sign a promissory note, but still, I was the one keeping the household afloat, doing all the work and paying all the bills. Despite this, he never appreciated me. He acted entitled, arrogant, and completely oblivious to his own failings. If he couldn't understand his responsibilities, I'd have to make him understand. I decided to divorce him. I went to the hospital, got a medical certificate to document my injury, and prepared the divorce papers. I felt bad for my daughter, but when I talked to her, she surprised me by agreeing. She said, "I want to come with you, ma'am." That gave me the strength I needed. I confronted my husband with the divorce papers. He panicked and tried to reason with me, saying, "Calm down. We have a daughter. Can we at least wait until she's an adult? Divorce isn't good for her education." I yelled back, "It's not good for her education that you ignore your sister's behavior. You didn't even care when she got kicked. You failed as a father in every way." I owned the apartment we lived in, since I was the one who bought it. It was in my name. After everything that happened, I told my husband, "I've let you stay here long enough. Why don't you go live with your sister?" I kicked him out. I'm not sure what happened to him after that, but I packed up his belongings and sent them to my sister-in-law's house. He didn't have much to take with him anyway. The divorce negotiations dragged on because my husband resisted the compensation I requested. Eventually, he gave up and agreed to the divorce when I reduced the amount. In exchange, I made him give up his share of the apartment and forgave the debt he owed me. Even though the matter is settled, I have no intention of forgiving him or his sister for everything they've put me through. Whether or not he can pay off his share of the settlement, I want him to understand the consequences of his actions. If he works hard and stops relying on others, he'll be fine. Looking back, I realize I spoiled him too much, and that's probably why he indulged his sister so much as well. I need to reflect on my part in allowing this to happen. On the bright side, my daughter is growing up to be a strong and independent person, much stronger than anyone would expect given our situation. For that, I have to be thankful to my husband for at least giving me a wonderful daughter. Thank you for reading until the end.